Hello, and welcome to my living room. My name is Anne, or Annie, and I am a knitter and fiber person living in Wisconsin, and I thought it would be kind of fun to try my hand at video podcast. Um, I like to do a lot of different fiber arts: spinning, weaving, knitting, crochet, dyeing, quilting, sewing, you name it. And I like to talk about those things as well. Why add another podcast to the world of podcasts that we're kind of getting overrun by knitting and fiber podcasts these days? There are so many good ones to choose from. But when I watch them, sometimes I don't actually find too many that talk about the things that I want to talk about or hear about. So I thought, well, okay, talk about them yourself, and maybe other people will be interested. My goal is, I have a few notes here. I did a sample video earlier this morning and kind of wrote up a little bit of, okay, do this, do this, do this. So I just want to call this the Live and Learn Fiber Podcast or Knitting Podcast. It will definitely include along the way more things than knitting, because I like to do so many different things. So a little bit about me. I am a lifelong maker and learner. My mom taught me from a very young age to sew, do embroidery. She did not teach me how to knit. She tried to teach me crochet, and we fought a lot about it. It was when I was, I think 11 maybe. And how I actually learned was just picking up her project one time and working on it. And found my way and crocheted a lot through high school. And I taught myself to knit while I was in college. And once I started knitting, I just kind of went to town and just did so much of it. Because it's so portable, easy to take places, and it's fun to make things. So that's a tiny bit about me. I also have two cats, George and Gracie, and they may or may not make an appearance here. It depends on how hungry they are. That seems to be when they come and want to be socially interactive with me. Or just to be, a little, what's the word? Social, I guess. Anyway, they're fun. So I want to call this the Live and Learn Podcast, because what I find missing in a lot of podcasts, or what I like the best when I'm watching podcasts, is learning something about a project or a technique, or even just about yarn in general, fiber, and that inspires me more than anything else, I think. So I have wanted to do this for a while, and I was trying to come up with things to talk about, and wasn't having a good thought process about it. But today I have a finished project, and that's what I'll talk about, is this finished project, and just kind of go through it, give a little review of it and what I did, how my interpretation of it, and we'll go from there. So also, and I'll put show notes if I can figure out how to put show notes. My username on Ravelry is Creative Mind, all one word. And on Instagram, I am Annie P Knits, all one word. Okay, what I'm making, what I'm doing. Let's see. All right, we'll get on to the project now. This is a sweater that I finished this week. It actually only took a few days of knitting. This cute little baby jacket is called the Baby Sophisticate, and it's a pattern by Lyndon Down. She's a designer. She's on Ravelry. This pattern is the worsted weight version, and its official name is the Baby and Child Sophisticate. And this one is for sale for $7 on Ravelry. She also has a pattern called Baby Sophisticate, just baby, that is an Aran weight version of this same sweater, and that is a free download on Ravelry. And that's actually the sweater, the version I started with. And several years ago, I made 3 or 4 of those. I think I even made one out of a chunky yarn in one day because it was so easy and fast. And the pattern is very well written. But I wanted to make a worsted weight version this time, so I bought her worsted version, which has sizes from 3 months to 24 months, I believe. It's 5 sizes, excuse me. So there's also an adult version of this sweater, which I purchased as well. Haven't started it yet, but I will make it for myself perhaps this winter, we'll see, and definitely put some pockets on the front for myself. I have a little yarn left over. I could add a little baby pocket on here. That might be fun. But let's see. So the adult version of this sweater is also $7 on Ravelry. This is a top-down raglan with a shawl collar. Love the shawl collar. I don't have the buttons put on yet. I have them sitting here. I have 2 choices. And I think I know which one I'm going to pick, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So yes, top-down construction raglan. This is just very cleverly designed. The pattern is really easy to follow, clearly written. She's got a schematic. I do have a printout here of the pattern, so there you can see her version, her illustration of that sweater. And she does show, not that page, but she does have a schematic of the sizes and, you know, what it's going to look like. Very helpful. So the yarn I used, and this, by the way, is for my friend from Iowa who is expecting her first grandchild next month in September. And so I wanted to make something for the grandbaby. And this is, the yarn I used is Cascade 220 Superwash hand paint. And I got it at a local yarn shop to me, Yarnology in Winona, Minnesota. Hi Gabby, hi Kelly. So I don't think they carry any Cascade products anymore, but this yarn's been in my stash for a long time, and I'm happy that I could use it in a project. And as an aside, that is one thing that I really am striving to do, is knit from my stash, because it's a big stash and I need to downsize it a bit. And one of the, not complaints, but one of the things that I really don't always like to hear about in podcasts is the acquisition part. Like, oh, I bought this, I bought that, I bought this. I try to stay away from being too materialistic and you know, just buying for the sake of buying anymore. Why I have a big stash is because I was a bit like that back in the day, you know, when I was working and had not unlimited funds, but, you know, just was a little more fluid with funds and that. Sure, it was great to go places and go to yarn shops and events and that and see all the pretty shiny things and buy things. And, you know, I built up a pretty good stash, and now I'm working through using it. And especially happy that I could use some of the superwash yarn, because I don't really enjoy superwash yarns anymore. and other podcasters, other knitters say this too, that the superwash yarns don't have the same life to their yarn as a toothier woolly wool yarn has. So, and that's what I prefer. That's what I learned I learned in the 80s to knit, and that was kind of a big time still for acrylic yarns and multicolor, Technicolor projects and that. I have some really colorful things back in the drawers that I might pull out in the future to show you. So I did use a lot of acrylics and blends and that in the past. And when superwash became big, especially for socks and that, I bought quite a bit. But it doesn't, when you wash it and block it, it kind of loses its body, its bounce. And in fact, this project, this little sweater, I blocked it on Tuesday, I don't remember. But I put it outside to dry on a towel in the heat. It was 102 degrees here, and that was Wednesday, yeah. And it just, I could see that, soaking it in the sink and patting it out to dry, it was very loose and, open, and it was just too drapey for me. So I let it dry part way, and I put it in the dryer for about 15 minutes with the towel that it had been on. And I always have dryer balls in my dryer that I made. And so, the last 10-15 minutes, it helped bring the life back to this sweater. So that was a good thing, because now I know that when the recipient, when the baby family gets it, that they will be able to take care of it in an easy fashion. So yeah, Cascade 220 hand paint. And at the time when I started this, I didn't know if it was going to be a boy or a girl. So I was going to put buttonholes on both button bands, and I decided I'll just put it on one, and I put it on the right hand side. With everything that's happening, boy side, girl side, that's kind of going out the window, don't you think? It doesn't matter that much anymore. You just put your clothes on and button them up, or don't button them up. It's fine, and it's a little baby thing. So the one modification that I made to this really nice pattern is I always like, especially if I'm knitting back and forth, to add a stitch at each edge as a selvage stitch, and then slip that stitch at the beginning or end of every row. I usually do it at the beginning. Sometimes patterns will have a selvage worked in, especially if it's like a nice I-cord selvage edge. You might have 3 extra stitches that you slip at the end of the row and then knit them the next time to make a corded edge. That's really pretty. But they don't always include that, and so I like to include that. What that does is gives you a really nice chain. See the nice row of chains going up there? Just really easy then to pick up stitches when you have to pick up a button band. So the one difference is, I believe she said to pick up, usually they say, pick up 3 stitches for every 4 rows. And that's on a plain edge, not one that has a selvage. So with this, I picked up 1 stitch for every row, because the selvage is actually, only worked every other row. So there are fewer selvage stitches to pick up in versus edges that there would have been if I hadn't done that. So I picked up 1 stitch for every row. Now that can, on a very big project, of course you're picking up less stitches than necessary, or than required to make this button band lay flat. It lays pretty good right now, because this is such a short length, really, and you can kind of see at the end, it lifts up just just a tiny bit, which could have maybe picked up 2 stitches at the very edge, or an extra, I think I did on one side pick up an extra stitch. That edge looks pretty good. But so it can pull it up a little bit. If this had been a cardigan for me, or a longer length of a project, what I could have done and would have done would be still pick up just 1 stitch for every slip stitch edge, but then the very first round of row of knitting on the next row, I would have made some increases. Not sure which ones, but I would have made increases to make up for that pulling in, and then it would have been fine. And it is fine, like I said, because this is a short length, a very short length, and it's also, garter stitch, pretty stretchy compared to some other, like maybe knit to purl to ribbing, of course, would have really went and crunched up on that. So garter stitch is a little bit more forgiving for an edge like that. So that was really the only modification that I made to the technique of this sweater. And of course then I ended up with either 12 or 20 less stitches around my opening than the pattern called for this particular size. But I don't really think that was too much of an issue for this particular sweater. And if it would have, really shrunken it up, felt too tight, I would have just taken it out and done it again, worked back. But this is fine. Buttons, I have 2 choices here. I'm not sure they're going to show up very well, but there's this little green, see? And there's a cat down here going to eat that button now. Thinks that's for her. So I have a little green button. It's hard to see in this light, but I also, it's a bit smaller. I have this one, which is, this part wasn't thought out, sorry. A brown, little darker button. If you look at my Ravelry page afterwards, I'll probably put a photo of buttons choices and then what I ended up coming up with. Sorry about that. Didn't work that through ahead of time. But they're both about the same. One's a tiny bit bigger than the other. And the buttonhole on this is just very, it's almost hidden. It's just a yarn over knit 2 together, which is such an easy buttonhole. In garter stitch, it's just perfectly invisible almost. It doesn't gape a lot. It's sometimes you make a buttonhole and it's way too big, and your buttons end up being too big for your project. And so I think, a yarn over knit 1 knit 2 together buttonhole is one of my favorites, especially in garter stitch. So let me think if there was anything else I have to say about this cute little baby sweater. I told you about, it took 143 grams. I always like to weigh my knitted projects when they're done, just to see, especially if you make a lot of the same thing, that, okay, a baby sweater takes this size, which was, I believe, a 12-month size, took a skein and a half of yarn. So I know for the future, if I want to make this again, and I will, because there are so many good patterns out there. I really like to try different things all the time, but then again, I like to knit my old favorites time and time again because I just know that they turn out so well. So that's, you do both. You do some adventures and then you do your old standards. Same thing with cooking. We all like to try new recipes, but yet we have our fallback, our go-to chocolate chip cookies, or our go-to meatloaf or something like that. So my go-to meatloaf sweater. Anyway, so I weighed it, 143 grams. I have enough. I could make a little baby hat to go with it. I don't know if I have time. Meeting up next week to hand this over to Grandma to be. And oh, well, that was the other thing about it, was that when I started knitting this, I didn't know if the baby was going to be a boy or a girl, and which was another reason why I picked this yarn. I really like green, blue and green together is one of my favorite combos. And yeah, I've put blue and green together for years and years. And so I was happy to use this yarn, and yeah, buttonholes on this side, because like I say, I wasn't sure. But the parents didn't want to know what the baby was going to be. And then just last week, I guess they found out kind of by accident. So they are having a baby girl. And I think this would be a great baby girl sweater or a baby boy sweater, either one. Very colorful kid sweater. Fun, kind of pooling, but then again, not pooling. Just nice. Nice yarn. So that might be it for today. I don't know how often I'll do this. I still have to figure out how to get this loaded to the world so that everyone can see it, and add some little notes like links to the pattern, links to my Instagram, which isn't that active right now. Might be in the future. I don't know if I shared too much else that I need to link to, but those kinds of little details still have to be worked out. And if anybody is watching and has any questions or anything they want to know about, feel free to comment, like, subscribe, all those fun things that everybody usually does. And this is actually a little longer than my first take of this, so I blathered a lot today, didn't I? I got a little more enthusiastic. Golly. Oh well. I guess that's a good thing. We will talk more in the future. There's so many things to talk about. I'm glad I had a project to show. That's kind of the thing I want to do, not just go on about, you know, everything, but maybe show something I learned. And what I learned about this sweater was, you know, changing it, putting the selvage stitch edge in there, and just having a nice, versatile, easy project to work on. All right, well, I also wanted to put the date and at the beginning, which I forgot. So I will say right now, this is Friday, August 25th, 2023. And I hope you all have a great weekend. Enjoy your knitting or your fiber creating, whatever you're going to be doing. The sun came out. It's still a little warm, but it's cooling off. We're going to have a nice summer afternoon and a good weekend. So please enjoy, and we will see you here again. Thank you. Here's my little off switch.